Hi, this is Jason with Haunted Curiosities and Haunted Collector. I'm here today with Grizzelle. She is a gypsy of pure white light. We actually met her about 1.5 years ago after we received a piece from one of our clients. They had gotten it as a gift, and they just said it worked wonders in their life, but they had no idea where it came from, what it was enriched with. So we received this, and we tested it thoroughly, and we were amazed with just the forces behind it and the power. So we actually tracked down the person who purchased this for her to find out where did you get it, and that led us to Grizzelle. So welcome, Grizzelle.
Welcome. Thank you, Jason. It's very nice to be here.
Yes, we are so honored because since then, over the past 1.5 years, we've gotten amazing pieces from you. And today we're honored to actually see you kind of infuse a couple items to showcase to our customers what you're all about. But first I want to ask a little bit about your background for those watching. How did you actually become empowered? Like, how did you gain this ability?
Well, a long time ago, first of all, let me start by telling you my family's lived in the same farmhouse now for probably about, I guess the house has been around since the early 1800s, late 1700s. And I was poking around in the attic and I found an old trunk, and in the trunk I found one of my ancestral grandmother's diaries. And I started reading the diary and some of the things that she had enclosed in the box, and it was fascinating. Turns out that my grandmother was actually a white witch.
And now what, so this box of things, like, where did that come from? I mean, who had this, and was it passed down over the decades?
Well, like I said, I found it up in the attic, and I'm not sure how long it's been there. Obviously, it's had to be there since my grandmother put it there. My mother knew about it. Matter of fact, I think she said she read a couple of things out of it and actually named me after my grandmother's best friend, who she'd mentioned in the diary. My mother never practiced witchcraft or spells. Neither did my grandmother as far as that. So it was just something that I found intriguing and fascinating, and I've been reading it and using it ever since.
And now, how old were you when you actually found this, when you came across the diary?
I think I can't remember exactly. I think it was about 17, 18. You know, I was in my teens when it, so...
And what about your family? Like, what were their ideals? Like, you said your mother and your grandmother kind of never did anything with it, so it almost seems like they thought, yeah, right, or...
I kind of think that is what Mom and Grandma thought. They thought, yeah, right, it's old folklore, it's, there's no reality to it, but...
Now, since you actually found it as a teenager, like, that's why I was curious, because say you were, you know, a child of 7 or 8, they would have just thought, oh, you're playing around, you know, you're playing with it, having fun, it's good. But being a teenager, you obviously have your ideals, your mentality, you know what's true and not, and, you know, what's right and wrong. So by finding this at that kind of an age, what did they think of you actually being interested and wanting to work with it?
I think they still felt like I was a 7 or 8 year old playing with toys. To be actual with you, they thought the spells were just, you know, pretty little lyrics and nice poems and didn't have any basis. But I think they're realizing now that there's a little more to it than that.
And now, what is the history of this ancestral grandmother? Like, where did she come from? Like, how did she become empowered?
Evidently, my ancestral grandmother had lived in Massachusetts. I'm not sure what if the family came over from Romania or which part of Romania. They do have gypsy in the background. Evidently, she married a man here in America, and he brought her over here. He was head over heels in love with her, and they lived up there until my family sold the house, and they moved down here to Pennsylvania. I'm assuming shortly after her demise.
Okay, so what do you mean by demise? Like, just her death?
Well, according to her diary, she lived a long life, but when she was in her 60s, that was the time of the Salem witch hunts and the trials, and pretty much her diary says things were getting a little hairy and she was a little fearful for her life, and that was one of the last texts that she wrote in the diary. So I'm assuming that she hit it you know, before they found her.
And now what, with this diary, I know that you practice white light, so is everything in there of good nature? Like, did she do dual magic? Like, what?
Everything that I found so far is good. There's no evil spells. There's no demonic forces behind any of our magic. All of our magic comes from the good side. It's all white. We'll do nothing to harm anybody.
And now, what was your great ancestral grandmother? Like, I know it's several greats back, so we'll just call her ancestral. What was her name?
My grandmother's name was Felicia, and like I said, when my mother did look at the diary briefly, she skimmed through it, or so she told me. She told me she never read it. But in there, my ancestral grandmother talks a lot about her best friend, and that's who I'm named after. That's where Grizzelle comes from.
I was going to say, it's very unique, very pretty.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It's unusual. I never heard it before.
And what, along with like the Salem witch trials, did you actually try and find Felicia? Like, I know there's certain, like in history, you can find certain witches that kind of were noted or stood out, and you can, you know, it's noted that they were killed. Is there any record or indication of that with Felicia?
Well, I haven't been able to find any written records, other than some legends that I found in more like in storybooks, which, if you know, most legends are based on real stories. From what I understand, she was very powerful, and which is why the townsfolk were so afraid of her. Which I don't understand, because again, I said she only did white magic. They had nothing to be afraid of, but back then everybody was afraid of what they didn't understand.
Exactly. I was going to say, and I know that we actually did some of our own research after, you know, talking with you a little bit, finding out about this diary, and there is no indication of her actual, like, being hung or anything like that. But we did find out, you know, through sources and old papers that she was, like, the most sought after of the witches, or of the, you know, enchanted.
Right.
And, which I think is just awesome.
Right.
Now, what are her primary spells that have, you know, have worked? I know you said you've been working this now for years, looking through it.
Right.
What are the things that have actually come through that you've been able to utilize?
Well, obviously, grandmother was a hopeless romantic, because most of her spells have to do with love, friendship, security, serenity, peacefulness. There's a few for wealth. We didn't grow up in a wealthy family, but we never went hungry on the other hand. So I think that her idea of wealth might have been just to have what you needed. However, she was very passionate, from what I can gather, and I know that's been passed on to me, because I have a very passion for not just for love and sex, but for everything that I do in my life.